James Bateman.
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 Podcast.
Hello and welcome to Future Voices.
I'm Millie.
I'm Miss Robar.
And I'm Mr. Ahern.
Thanks for joining us today, Millie. Now, before we get properly started, can you explain to our listeners what this podcast is going to be about?
Well, as you know, this podcast is called Future Voices. I suppose this is our opportunity to have our voices heard. We're the ones who are going to inherit the world right now, and it seems that there are a lot of really bad things going on in the environment. So, each podcast we're going to discuss a different topic. The topics are going to be about things going on in the world right now that can be changed to give us all a better future.
Brilliant, that sounds great. So, what topic have you picked for us this week?
Well, I want to start us off with talking about food, what we eat, how it's produced, and what we all can do to improve this.
Okay, sounds good. So to start us off, can you tell me how bad things are at the moment in terms of how we're growing and eating our food? Is it sustainable at the moment but getting worse, or is it already at the stage when we're in real trouble?
Sadly, the way we do things around food is a total catastrophe, but thankfully there is a lot going on to solve the current issues. It's bad because at the moment 50% of the world don't have enough water going forward because so much is being used in farming. There's not enough variety in the crops, so each time a pesticide is made, the pests adapt to it and reproduce straight away, so we make stronger poisons which damages the soil. With the soil damage, we add more fertiliser, meaning the soil there erodes. With the amount of soil erosion, some scientists think the world only has 60 harvests left.
Wow, okay, that was a big start.
Yeah, and I'm not done yet. In the UK, we grow less than 50% of the actual food we eat, and to add to that, we waste around a third of the food we do produce here. Basically, we're growing the wrong stuff, eating the wrong things, and throwing too much of it away.
Okay, so where do we start? When we go shopping, there's loads of food everywhere. It wouldn't even occur to me that there's such a problem.
I suppose in the UK we're most at fault because a lot of the crops that we grow we feed to animals. When we eat animals, we get about 3% of the energy out of what we have put into raising that animal, which is so inefficient.
Yes, I suppose as a teacher, if I said I'll get 3% of my pupils to pass the SATs, then I'd be a pretty rubbish teacher.
Now, I tried going vegetarian a few years ago after I'd heard all the problems in the beef industry. I managed a few months but really struggled and gave up after a while. Is going vegan or vegetarian the only way to solve things?
I mean, it'd have a far greater impact if everyone just cut out meat one day a week. But it's not really eating meat that's the issue. It's more the massive industrial-style meat production. It's about working with nature to help create sustainable food sources because nature is incredibly good at growing things.
But with the rising populations, isn't it important for us to be producing food on a larger scale on these big industrial farms? Wouldn't cutting that out actually leave more people without food or even raise the prices, making it less affordable for people with lower incomes?
That's actually a bit of a myth. There are over 500 million farms in the world, and most of the world is still fed by small local farms, which is 80% of our food, using only 30% of the resources. These big industrial farms make more money, but what they're basically doing is pushing the debt on the environment, and very soon our environment isn't going to be able to cover that debt.
There's clearly a lot wrong with what we eat, how it's grown and our waste. Let's get on to the solutions. What can we do to help? How can we sort this mess out? Is vegetarian meat an option?
Grass-fed livestock isn't much of a problem. Grazing patterns are actually pretty sustainable. The meat substitutes are okay to start with, but they are quite engineered, which doesn't help with rebuilding our connection with the natural world.
I suppose as well, trying to recreate foods that already exist doesn't help us break the habit with changing our food for the better. I mean, all I do when I have the meat alternative food is compare it in my head to the real thing, rather than changing what I would view as a proper dinner at the end of the day. I suppose it would be good to look at real foods grown naturally and start putting them into my weekly diet.
Exactly, but the sustainable diet for the UK right now is 90% less meat, not no meat. In fact, historically, meat was more of a treat rather than something you have to have every meal. There is room for meat, just reared properly, grass-fed and looked after. It does fit into a sustainable future for us.
Okay, so what do we need to do right now to make a difference and help?
Well, the biggest thing we need to do is rebuild our relationship with nature. We need to support sustainably farmed food. We need to try to buy more responsibly.
Ah, now I get you. So it's about understanding our relationship with the land and making changes to what we do based on our understanding.
Yeah, it's not about trying to get everything we can out of nature. It's about understanding nature and working with it in a sustainable way. We don't want to ruin the thing we all need to survive. We want to replenish it.
Now, obviously, as an individual, I can't really make a huge difference the way farming is done. Can anybody? Or is it these massive companies making some people very rich that won't let things change?
Yeah, I mean, it's not really farmers' fault. Most of them do have a relationship with nature, and so many farms are trying so many different methods to become more sustainable. Some are struggling to make the changes because often farms are a family thing, and it's very hard to go against how things have been done for such a long time. Things are slowly changing, and it's the attitudes that need to change first.
Would it make a difference if I started thinking about what I bought a bit more and tried to be more sustainable?
Yes, what we need is a culture to change around food. The way to get big companies to listen is to change the way we spend. Then the companies will follow or they go bust.
So we've spoken about a lot of different things. Now what can I actually do to help solve these problems?
So, I think buying from local producers is important. We have to support and encourage these smaller producers. Secondly, try to cut down on meats we consume. Try to eat more plant-based food when possible, and when you are getting meat, try to go for the highest grade you can afford. Thirdly, try to waste less. Lastly, cook more. The more we cook, the more we think about the food we eat. Try to encourage children to cook with you so that they learn what is on the plate.
Thanks for listening to Future Voices with
Millie.
Mr. Ahern.
and Miss Robart. The next episode will be Christmas and the future. See you in December.
Bye.
James Bateman. James Bateman.
James Bateman. James Bateman.
James Bateman.
James Bateman.
James Bateman. Podcast.